If you've tried reading a book in the social media age, you'll know it's impossible because if you're like me, you can't read more than a page without thinking about something else and having to reread the page and forgetting what you're doing. Same is true for audiobooks. I can't listen to an audiobook and take a walk without my mind wandering because I cannot do two things at once anymore for whatever reason. But on guitar, luckily, you can. So this is going to be a cool, easy lesson about doing two things at once, but not in a way where you're multitasking. You're actually kind of breaking the string set into the low strings and the high strings and playing two different chords. All right? So there's kind of easier ways to do this and kind of more dissonant ways to do this. But basically, we're just going to do kind of some stuff that sounds a little bit like this. So this is in a standard tuning, E, A, D, G, B, E. But some of the stuff that we're going to do is going to sound like it's an alternate tuning because we're using chords in the key of C, and then we're going to pick another key and do the same thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to open up the top of every single chord. What I mean by that, I'm just going to strike the open G, B, and E string, and I'm going to add them to the regular main chords in the key of C, and there's a very easy kind of cheat way that we can do this using two shapes, all right? So first of all, let's just learn C major 7. All right? Now, you've probably seen this as a chord voicing, especially if you've watched my channel, where it's just, I've got my ring finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, my pinky on the 3rd fret of the A string, and my middle finger on the 3rd fret of the D string, right? Then everything else is open. So my notes would be a G, a C, an E, another G, a B, and another E. So, those combine to give you C major 7, C, E, G, B, or C/G, because the G is in the bass. So, even if you just played this before, without the open B string, a regular C major chord with a G in the bass is a slash chord. That's just a fancy way of saying it's an inversion. An inversion in music is any time that the root note of a chord is not the lowest note, pretty much, right? So, again, the root note in the C major chord is a C, 3rd fret on the A string. But when we add that G, we're slashing it and adding that G. Because now this is the bass note, the lowest note, but we still have the same notes to make up C chord or C major 7 chord, all right? But what a lot of people don't realize when they're first starting out is just the lowest 3 strings right here, G, C, and E. That's all you really need to complete the definition of a chord, a triad. You have a root note in the middle in this inversion. It's major 3rd on the D string, and it's 5th below it, right? So we could go through and play all the chords in this key, all the main chords, the 6 main chords, with this one shape and a variation, okay? So, before I go further, I want to say this video is sponsored by Sweetwater. They sent over this Taylor GS Mini because Taylor is having a really cool sale where if you get one of their higher-end Taylors, you can get a GS Mini steeply discounted or a Big Baby Taylor. So I did an unboxing on this. I will link you in the description if you want to check that out because I did one of my original songs with it. And again, for a small body guitar, it doesn't sound small, right? Really balanced, sounds great. Thank you, Sweetwater. Thank you, Taylor, for sponsoring the video. Check out the affiliate link in the description. All right, so we've got the C major 7 chord, but we're not going to think of this as a C major 7. I want to think of this as 2 different chords. I want to think of this as the C major triad in the lowest 3 strings, and then really just a G, B, and an E string, which ends up being an E minor triad, any combination of G, B, and E, E, G, B in order. See, the highest strings are an inversion in itself. So we have a C major chord and an E minor chord, and then together they make a C major 7 chord, okay? So that's kind of like a simple way to look at it, but when we take other chords in this key, we're going to get some more interesting sounds, all right? Now, there's 3 major chords in any key. They're on the 1st degree, the 4th degree, and the 5th degree. Okay, what that means is if you go through the major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember, root note, whole, half, whole, half. That's how how you get the major scale. If you don't know how to do that, check out the Patreon or some of my other YouTube videos. But if you take the first note, the fourth note, and the fifth note, C, F, G, F being the 8th fret on the A string, G being the 10th fret on the A string, we can plant this major triad on those different spots. Really good target practice is to take this shape. And now you'll notice I'm not hitting the open strings on the top. I'm really just kind of focusing on just target practice, just getting those 3 strings right there. Okay? And again, I think it's good to be able to kind of control your strumming and your picking if you're playing with your thumbs or even finger style or something like that, to kind of get control of what bands of strings that you're hitting, right? When I say a band of strings, maybe just, aim for 1 string, 2 string, 3, 4, 5, 6. Try to get better at it. You don't have to be perfect every time. That's the beautiful thing about chords in this key. You can hit surrounding strings as long as they're open, they're going to sound fine, right? They might sound different, but they do sound fine. So we have C, F, G, C, F, G. Maybe we want to go C, G, F. And as long as you keep a steady strum, you can kind of get that sliding in between, and as long as you're doing it on time, it's going to sound fine, all right? What if we add an E minor chord to each of those, right? C, does it sound bad? Does it sound good? I don't know. It sounds kind of cool. I think it's like an interesting sound that you get by adding what I'm thinking of as a totally different chord. And the way that I'm strumming it, I'm kind of actually separating them, right? I'm getting like the triad in the low part, and then strumming the high part. So we're getting a little bit of a separation instead of just like, I think if you get all of them at the same time, like right there, this is an F, an A, a C, a E, a G, and a B. It's like, that's a lot. That's 6 different notes of 7 in a key all played at the same time. This is kind of like taking your hand and smashing it on like a piano with just all the white keys. Is that bad? Is it good? I don't know. I'm not really getting a vibe from that. But if you're picking through it, I think it sounds a little better, right? So it's just we've got a couple different schools of thought here. 2 different things at the same time. That triad, and then just opening up the top for whatever you want to do. Okay? Now we can do the same thing with the minor chords in this key. There are 3 minor chords in any key. In the key of C, it happens to be D minor, E minor, and A minor. So we can find those notes along that same root string. The A string is going to be responsible for our root note for all these. And then we just take the same shape and then make one adjustment. Your middle finger is going to be swapped with your pointer finger, and now you have a separation of 2 frets between the A and the D string, right? Might be a little bit of a stretch for you, but you can do it, right? You'll get used to it. So now here's our root note, here's our minor 3rd, and our 5th. So again, this is a D that I'm rooting on with my pinky 5th fret. This is a D minor chord. D major, minor. All it is the difference between that 3rd. Major chord with a flat 3 is a minor chord. That's the only difference, really, right? So we can do this on the D, the E, and the A. Okay? So in fret terms, that would be the 5th fret, the 7th fret, and the 12th fret. D minor, E minor, A minor. You've heard these chords before, but maybe you've heard them as D minor, E minor, A minor. D, E, A. So aside from maybe getting a different sound, you're getting more variety, you're moving all over the fretboard. They could open up different musical ideas because you're playing these inversions. And a lot of times what I found in writing songs, using inversions will affect the melody that you choose to put over them. If you're maybe putting a vocal on it or maybe soloing over it, Inversions are really valuable just because it gives you a different perspective on the type of sound that you're looking for, right? So now let's do the same thing where we add that E minor chord to the other minor chords. D minor, E minor, an E minor with an E minor chord on top is just a fuller sounding E minor. For this one too, you can actually open up the root note. Now you get like an octave just to really hammer home the E-ness of that chord. A. D minor, E minor, A minor. And again, notice that the strumming on the low strings and the high strings. Low, high, low, middle, high. D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor. Now if we were to combine them, they would all have different names, right? Like C major 7, we could go through them all, and then some of them, again, the names are really inconsequential, like a F, A, C, E, G, B. It's like, okay, sure, we can come up with a name for it, but the name is just nonsense because nobody would ever really use that in a linear pattern like that. But you can come up with really cool sounding stuff. So I would recommend getting them in order to get the muscle memory and the vision of how it's laid out. It's just two shapes. And then maybe start moving around. Let's try C to E, F, C, G, D, A, E. And again, that's kind of like a really cool progression that sounds a lot different than if I were going to play C, E, F, C, E, F, C. It sounds similar, but not the same, right? So we're getting a little bit of a different vibe. Also, the lower strings on the guitar a lot of times carry a lot of the weight of the chord. So even though we're adding that E minor goodness on top of everything, we're still getting the gist of what the lower triad is trying to tell us. Now, the cool thing is you can use this trick in other keys. Any key that has an E minor in it, of which there are 3 different keys, where E minor is either the 2, the 3, or the 6. Again, check out the Patreon if you want to learn more about how that's kind of calculated, right? But you can probably do it yourself too. So let's do the people's key, the key of G, right? G is very similar to the key of C. They share a lot of the same chords. Let's start on a G major, still rooted on the A string. So here's the 1 chord. Now the 2 chord is still A minor. That's also shared, right? So if I'm just playing G major to A minor, even with the stuff on top, I can't really tell exactly what key I'm in. I could be in G, I could be in C. But when I go to D major and C major, that's one of the differences in here. Right? And the key of G, this F sharp comes into play, so D becomes a major chord instead of a minor chord, how it was in C, right? Because the key of G, G, A, B, C, D, D is the 5, 1, 4, and 5. So now our 1, 4, 5 is G, C, D, G, C, D with the high strings. And now our 2, 3, and 6 chords, A minor. E minor is also still in this. Our new one is B minor. Now this is one of the ones that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about because this is the one chord out of all of them that doesn't totally work for me. Maybe it does for you, but this is where inversions go wrong, all right? You may have never ever seen this played as a B minor chord. 2nd fret on the E string, 2nd fret on the A string, open D. Believe it or not, that's a B minor triad. Does that sound anything like this? Not really, because in this case, I do think that the inversion actually kind of throws you astray, because that F sharp, that fifth really just takes so much precedent over it. But technically that is a B minor chord, right? So there is the 3 chord. What sounds so ominous. 4 chord, 5, 6, 1, 2, 1. So you do the same thing, just kind of randomly just go through them, right? Let's start with G. To the 4 chord. To the 6 chord. E. To 5. And then N triad and true G, right? So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do just by taking these existing triads and then just really just popping a chord on top of the whole thing, right? So yeah, again, thank you to Taylor and Sweetwater for sending the GS Mini over. I've never had one of these. I've seen these all over the place because, like I said, the Taylors very rarely go on sale. So if you are thinking about getting a high-end Taylor, now's the time to do it, because even if you don't want this, I mean, what a great gift this would be for somebody else that you could get for pretty cheap right now. So thanks again. Check out the affiliate link for the Sweetwater website. And if you have any questions, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, or the website. I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks a lot.